Welcome to Managing Through Crisis.
Jay Massey is a full-time real estate investor. He's an entrepreneur.
He also teaches people how to find deals, raise capital for real estate investments.
Meeting Jay Massey in person, you'd think he's just a regular guy. He's got jeans and a t-shirt on and a pair of sneakers. But he's built up a multi-million-dollar empire.
I hope you do have an empty notebook because it's going home filled.
Jay gives back so much value that I've never seen.
Now, at this moment, when I'm looking at the kitchen, things are going through my head.
You want to be friends with him, and he treats you like you're the only person in the room, even though it's for the benefit of everybody.
This is how, when you ask yourself, how does Jay do it? This is how.
He tells people that they have to take action, and they have to take action now. I took the action, and the results have paid off.
What happens when the marketplace understands who we are and how we go out there?
All right, there we go. Okay, small technical challenge, but we got it going. Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here again today. What we are going to talk about today is how to pivot, if you will. So it's a phrase that's said often inside the entrepreneurial world, but more importantly, how often are you taught exactly what to do step by step? And when you don't know, you're like, how can I do, I can't do that. I want to do that. But how do you do it? And that's the problem sometimes, is that we don't know how to actually make a change, because it is a 5-step process. And not only once you've made the change, what happens to you after the change. So we're definitely going to talk about all of those things today. Now, with that, what we're doing is we're going to do our best to go through as much of that process as humanly possible right now in today's session. Now, with that being said, one of the things I have to do is to tell you that there's no way we're going to be able to cover all of the details. But what I can do is direct you to the resource so that you are able to download it and continue studying and understanding it yourself, because that's what it's going to take in order for you, everybody, to get through this. So I'm going to tell you the name. I'm going to tell you where I got it from, and so that you can continue to model it for yourself. Now, with that being said, for those of you who are brand new, do me a favor. Go ahead and click that. Go ahead and type new. Like if this is your first time here, go ahead and type new. My name is Jay Massey, CEO of CashFlowDiary. And what we do, I think, is rather simple. We help you build cash flow. So how do we do that? By practicing what we teach. What do? We provide short-term rentals, and we teach you to do the same thing. That's it. Nothing more complicated than that. So if that's something that you like, for those of you watching on YouTube, by all means, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Those of you watching on Facebook, hit that like button, especially for that Facebook page. That would be really, really wonderful. Also, if you got a question, go ahead and type that in the chat. You can type it in the chat, because I see those, or I will see those soon. And then but if you have a longer, deeper question, or you want to make sure your question gets absolutely answered, the one that we guarantee that we answer are at cashflowdiary.com/ask. When you get there, you're just going to put in your information, answer the question, or ask your question. Use full sentences. I don't think I need to say that, but I kind of do. So use full sentences. And then if you actually have a great question, what we're going to do is we're going to bring you on live, and we'll talk about it in that way as well. Now, excuse me. Okay. So what are we talking about today? Well, in essence, we're talking about making a change, because here's what has happened. And I think most business owners for sure, we've already realized this, to many degrees. And what we have to do now is, what are we going to do about the thing? Is that when, not if, when something happens, how do you modify? What is it that you need to do to become a bigger, better version of who it is that you are and what you do? This particular workbook right here, it's called, here's the title, The Impact of the Corona Crisis on Your Business Model. All right. Very specifically, this was from the Copenhagen Business School. Okay. The gentleman, Thomas Ritter and Karsten Lund Pedersen. Now, there's a thing to remember, to know that they have a book called Alignment Squared. Okay. And for those of you who wonder, remember, I've said this before, and I'm going to say this a lot, actually, is that when it comes down to it, you and I, we will not out-earn our personal growth. It's just not possible. I mean, no matter how much you may want to think you're perfect and you got it all together and you're ready to go, that's just not how it works. So what does that mean in this particular case? It means that for me personally, and I also would say for you, one of the things that we must do, should do all the time, is continue to find a way to grow in additional ways. So this particular resource was something that I ran across as I was going through Harvard Business Review, right near the time everything was falling apart. Okay. HBR has since done a significant number of articles and resources on leading through a crisis. In fact, one of my favorite titles of an article that they've done is called, and now I want you to just think about everything going on in the United States as I say this, but one of my favorite titles is Real Leaders. Real leaders are forged during a crisis. Yep. I kind of like that title. So it is what it is. All right. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's get back to the business at hand. So I want you guys, though, to be ready because this is going to come at you fast and it's going to come at you quick. So be ready. Now, one of the reasons you're going to want to do this is because going through this particular process will help you regardless of the business type, but every time a crisis or any time a crisis happens so that you can make necessary changes. Now, going through this, you may reveal additional businesses, you may reveal additional marketplaces. All of these things are going to help you increase your revenue and likely decrease some expenses. So, if you haven't done something like this and you're wondering from a short-term rental perspective what to do, and you're still trying to figure this out, this is it. This, by the way, is also how we were able to change things so that the individuals who are starting, who just started or started right as the pandemic began, how we were able to help guide them through so that they could make profit now, even though all this crazy was going on. So pay attention, and here we go. Now, if you missed some of this or if it's a little dense or whatnot, make sure you go to cashflowdiary.com/live. That way you can replay it, watch it again, because that may be necessary in this particular case because, well, it's not always the easiest of topics to talk about in a short period of time. All right, so here we go. This is where I'm gonna scroll down, scroll, because I want to cover this right here. This is the big meat and potatoes. Okay, we're not gonna go through like every step of the workbook as much as I may want to, but this is the big meat and potatoes. It's pretty much broken up into three phases and 5 questions. All right, 3 phases and 5 questions. So I'm gonna give you a second to take that screenshot while I bring up the handy dandy notebook, as Steve from Blue's Clues would say. 1, 2, and all right. So hopefully you got that part. Now, why don't you see the notebook? Because the notebook is not connected to the computer. I thought it was. Come on. There you go. All right. So now here's how I want you to think about this whole process. As I said, it is 3 phases over 5 questions. Okay? 3 phases over 5 questions. One of the first and most important things to remember that when a crisis occurs or when something like this is anything is attacking your business is that the 3 phases must be taken into account because the answers to the questions change or likely change based upon the phases, right? So let's go really quickly over the 3 phases as I go through this. So 1, 2, and 3. Go back to the book. Yeah, PDF. Yes, you guys can see it. Links, article. These are the 3 phases right here. So you've got the 3 phases, as you can see. There's during the crisis. There's right after. And then there's new normal. Now, human nature wants to rush to new normal, right? That's what we want to do. We want to get to new normal like yesterday. We want to know the new normal now. Unfortunately, we can't make it go faster. And we have to go through the process, all of the stages. So while depending on your language and what you've been hearing or saying, individuals may have been wanting to talk about the new normal and telling you this is the new normal, but the new normal is not here yet. I mean, it's just not here yet. And in fact, the unfortunate part is we are still at the beginning crisis. Did I ever spell that? I don't know. Whatever. Right after. So we're still at the beginning here. We're still up here. We're still at during the crisis. I would love to we're making progress through the crisis, but we're not after the crisis yet. We are still right there, smack dab in the middle. So, but when we get to right after, we'll have to go through this process again, and we'll want to reevaluate each of our businesses and make sure that we've considered, exactly what's going on. So understanding where you are in your crisis is important. So during the crisis is the first thing to recognize, and then you got to go through the same 5 questions, right? To be able to, same 5 areas of your business, which can generate lots of questions. Because when we did this as an exercise with everybody in the workshops and whatnot, let's just say it takes a while. So hopefully that makes some sense. All right, so let's get back to the 5 areas real fast. It is right there, because I want to get that on paper, so to speak, and then we can keep going. So the 5 areas are your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Does this feel, I feel like Sesame Street style or something today. It just feels that way. I don't know. Let's see how this continues. Where to go? We've got results as one of the areas. Customer. And I'm going to explain these. Don't worry. I just want to get them written down so I don't have to keep flopping back and forth. Value proposition. Proposition. Value demonstration. And we won't, like I said, this is where we won't have time to go through everything or all of them. So I'll leave you some homework or something. And then capability. Okay. So those are the 5 areas. Now, obviously, there's more inside the workbook, but I'm boiling it down to the practical and tactical of what it takes to pivot, right? Because that's what's necessary for businesses anytime there's a crisis, every time there's a crisis, or maybe your business just isn't doing well and you want to, and that is the crisis. Hey, the business isn't doing well. And I want to make sure to be able to make some changes. So with that being said, it becomes, okay, what can I do? What should I do? How do I solve this problem and make this better? Right? Well, we've got to then focus on asking ourselves, because we're during the crisis, when it comes down to it, you want to get detailed with some questions around, we'll take it with number 2, customer, because that's kind of my favorite one. Anyway, when it comes down to it, you want to know, let me scroll down for some more of the questions. Woo. And make that a little tinier. There we go. So yeah, what you want to do is you want to ask yourself the question. So for the sake of this example, let's pretend we're during the crisis and we're talking about our customer. Well, first of all, in order to talk about our customer during the crisis, we have to first ask ourselves, and this was a key question that we had to go through. Who was our customer before the crisis, and who is our customer now? Asking that question, this very question, is what began to unlock very completely different people, but most importantly, it began to inform some of the daily actions that we needed to do. For example, before COVID, especially and I'll speak for California, specifically our portfolio, our number 1 customer was an Asian business traveler. Let's just say that we took it hard at the beginning, because it was like, wait a minute, what's going on? Because, that was the first country that was shut down or not allowed to come to the United States. And then they were traveling for business. So it's like, okay, we have a problem. And we can figure this out. But that was like one of our top customers. And when you understand that, you can begin to continue to ask questions, or at least recognize that you have a problem. The next thing is, all right, during this crisis, who is our customer? Who could be our customer? Who has a need for temporary housing? This is where I say, somebody get ready to write this in the chat. the number one lead generation source on the planet, okay? The number one source, and it's free. You ready? It's the news. The news, they're really good, and they're consistent, and they tell you exactly what's broken, where it's broken, sometimes who broke it, but they never tell you how to fix it, which is fine. But that's where the entrepreneur come in. But when they were saying things like, and still are, think about it, that the first responders needed a place to stay because they didn't want to go back home. When they're saying things like there's extra, medical professionals being asked, the governors are on like, hey, can you send extra people and come? When you're realizing when schools first shut down, the kids, or especially college ones, especially international ones, where were they going to go? Right? All of these things were things that the news told us. But because we were conscious and asking the question, it became clear, right? And we were going through this building and figuring out how to pivot. It's very clear when you go through this because your customer changes, and that's exactly what has happened. Our customers totally changed, but because the customer changed, guess what? It also leads to one of the other sections is where to go. How do you demonstrate? Value demonstration is one of the other sections as well. So one of the other sections around value demonstration becomes, well, how did you demonstrate your value before COVID and now during, right? Because what we did before may not work. And this was probably the most difficult part of the pivot for every short-term rental operator, is everything you had done no longer worked. And you had to rebuild that entire process in the middle of March, immediately, period. And that was stressful to say the least, but definitely something that needed to be done, right? How do you demonstrate value when the platforms like an Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, all these things, this was how the person discovered you, but no one is currently going there because they're not traveling. And especially Booking.com is like, that's where if I wanted international travelers, that's exactly where they were coming from. So it was like, wow, cricket's total non-existent. It's like, it's just not going to happen. So what do you do? And it became connecting the two things. Understanding who the new customer was all started informing how we needed to demonstrate value, how we needed to get in front of, advertise to, market. We began changing everything. There was more emphasis on social and Facebook and Instagram. And then there became more emphasis on literally creating flyers and going to the hotels when they closed, because hotels did such a great job of branding themselves that guess what? Even though they were saying on the news that they were closed, people were still trying to go there to get a place to stay. So if you happen to have your flyers there, guess what? They stayed at your place because the hotel wasn't taking them. All of those things are things that mattered. Does that make sense? I hope so. But learning to ask yourself these questions again, and I'm only really asking or showing you one question. Notice that there are 5 areas, and we've only really talked about 2 questions out of the areas, and you can ask multiple under each area in order to begin to develop. And what gets fleshed out is a brand new way of doing business. In fact, let me tell you one of the things that actually worked that I thought was crazy when I thought it, because it was me and the rest of the team. We were the students and whatnot. We were together. We were brainstorming this because again, we all had the same problem, right? And it was so great because it totally worked, or works, I should say, is when it comes to not value demonstration, but value proposition. Because of the change, because of the customer change, specifically because of our new or renewed or deepened focus, say, on medical travelers, one of the things that we did, so those of you who are currently running short-term rentals, you're going to want to write this one down, use it because it's great. We happen to have a number of students who were in the medical profession themselves. And I just asked, hey, okay, so what do you guys value? Like, what would be something that would be valuable? And then I forgot who said it. I think it was a guy in Texas. And he mentioned scrubs. And I'm like, okay, tell me more. And long story short, what evolved is that we started giving away a pair of scrubs in exchange for reservations of a certain length, right? And that certain length just happened to coincide with what a medical professional or a traveling nurse would actually commonly do. So we started giving away free scrubs. And I'm not kidding. So we would just spend the extra money, have them shipped to them, but it worked. Now, that's not something I would have thought of except for going through the structure. Does that make sense? And except for making sure that everyone else was also going through the structure and we were collectively solving this problem and developing this new way of demonstrating our value, demonstrating what is our value proposition, who is the customer. One of the biggest things that I know that most of the time, if we get a random question about this when it relates to COVID, most of the time, you guys, what you ask me about, you'll ask about the cleaning, which is number 4 here. What about your capabilities? What about your capabilities during the crisis has to change? And the first one that had to change, obviously, was, cleaning, sanitation. We talked about that. And we developed, like I said, that 68 project list in order to make that happen. And that's the thing. But we had to ask the question, right? You can allow the crisis to happen to you. However, we suggest you lead through the crisis, not just your team, not even just your customers and your business, but yourself. See, creating this clarity, I know it helped me, but I also think it helped a lot of the people who were watching the live streams or whatnot, because they were like, oh, I know what to do. Right. And it kept being reinforced every time you go on the news because you could see the problem and the match was clear. And the objective, the purpose, the mission, if you will, was undeniable. And then it all really came together where a friend of mine down in Alabama, I believe it was Joey. It might have been Russ. I still don't remember. It's one of the two. I was telling him about the issue and he summed it up. He's like, oh, so what you have is a marketing problem. I'm like, yep, that's it. And that's what we learned how to focus on, because that was the biggest thing. That was the value demonstration area was the biggest thing that from a short-term rental operator perspective, where our knees just got cut off. Like, this hurts. Now, we're stronger though, because as your OTAs come back and the platforms begin to produce revenue again and customers and whatnot, guess what? You've already built a stronger business. Now you're nowhere near as dependent on them as you were before. You're much smarter. You've developed all kinds of resources, and indeed, we're still developing more, which is where I come from the process of saying, get more units and keep growing, because this whole thing continues to get bigger and better and more each and every day. Now, as I said before, there's a lot to this. And like I said, I told you from the beginning, I wasn't going to have the time to go through all of the pieces. However, there's one more thing that I want to introduce to you, and we won't go through it today. I'll just say we'll save it for a future day. All right. Is to understand that as you go through this process, because there's another thing that tends to happen as you're going through this process of change, this process of rebirth, Phoenix rising from the ashes. Use whatever thing you want to call it. I don't care. All right. As you're going through this process, one of the things that you will experience is, and again, I promise you, I did not make this up. It's just named that. Okay. It's called the J curve. Someone write that in the chat. The J curve. Woo. Yeah. I didn't make it up. So, but it's what's there. And understanding the J curve it's an economic term. I kind of like it. Yes, I'm partial to it for all the obvious reasons. But my point in sharing it with you is that when you're going through changes like such that we are talking about, you need to understand that there are phases to those changes as well. There's that startup phase, right? From the beginning, you start, you got to get it started. And then there's, as you go through, especially as you go through, you got to realize that down here, you don't go straight up first. That's not what happens. It goes through this period, this trough, this is where this part right in here, this part right in here, that's where most people quit. That's where most people quit, right? And understanding that this is also what's happening is important. Because yes, you did go through the workbook. Yes, you are persevering and pushing your way through. But you know what? We'll have to save this for a future session. But what it comes down to is understanding the J curve. It's Howard Love. He wrote a book he called The Startup Curve by Howard Love. So if you want to get more information on that, you totally can. But that's where I'm coming from, ladies and gentlemen, is that there's a step, there's a process for nearly everything. And when you're trying to make your business grow and go, then, that's really what it comes down to. Just ask yourself, did the fundamentals of your business change? Fundamentally, is there still a need for what you do? Yes or no? Or what you'd like to do? Yes or no? And so long as there's still that need, then all right, I'm not going to say anything other than there's a way to make your business work. But you got to go through the resources. You've got to ask the questions. You got to find the changes. And as you do so, you often unlock new customers, new ways of doing things, new innovations is what come to the market. In fact, that is exactly what our marketplace needs. More innovation. If you're finding yourself right now, today, waiting for something to get better, well, it's not going to get better until you and I innovate and create something to make it better. I don't care what it is, but you and I, we're the ones who do it, right? And the entrepreneurs are the ones who do it. So that's really what it comes down to. Now, for those of you, if this was your first time here, I just want to remind you that, hey, this is kind of how we roll. This is what we do. In a second, I'm going to check for some questions. If there are any, great. If not, no big deal. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. because that's what we're doing every day in August. I literally forgot what month it was for a second. Every day in August, we're going live to share more information about business, about cash flow, about real estate, about what it's going to take for you to become a bigger, better, badder entrepreneur. If you want to make sure that you get access to the transcripts, the past recordings, the stuff that's been going on, if you happen to miss one, you can go to CashFlowDiary.com/live, LIVE. Again, that's CashFlowDiary.com/live. And we'll make sure to send you the notifications, all that good stuff. And I think that's great. For those of you on YouTube, though, make sure you hit the subscribe and notification bell. It gets a little easier over there. Man, when it comes to leading through a crisis or building your business, this is, again, just a really, really big part of just understanding that you can do it, right? Also understanding, like I said, the J curve is important. And there are many, many different things that tend to transpire and happen on the way. All right, so let's see what we've got. What up, Tony? How are you? I'm good. I'm good. How are you? Let's see who we got. Donald. Hey, how are you? And then let me see. Somebody, you guys are funny because when you're catching real leaders are forged during a crisis. Yep. Got it. And then Lorraine, don't forget, yes, the number one lead generator is the news. I know it sounds crazy, but when you understand and just think about it, entrepreneurs, what we do is we solve problems. That's it. And what does the news do? It broadcasts problems every day for free. It's great. I think it's great. It's like, I don't have any leads. Don't worry. Wait till 5 o'clock. The news will be on. They literally do that all the time. And then, yes, understanding the J curve, because that's happening to you psychologically as well, right? We want to have the feeling, the experience of success faster. And, well, it is what it is. And yes, it's our turn. Time for us, you, me, we're the ones who have to innovate. If we don't innovate, this only continues, right? And I don't want it to continue. I would prefer it stop right now, please. So yes, that's all I'm going to say there. And let me see, how do we know when we're ready to grow our business as we are leading through the crisis? You're asking the question. There is no perfect timing. What's his name? What is his name? Chris Gardner. I don't know, Mr. Casey, if you've ever seen the movie The Pursuit of Happiness. It's based upon a gentleman by the name of Chris Gardner. And there's a lesson, there's two lessons that are really huge for me from the book, movie, etc. Is the cavalry isn't coming, and start before you're ready. Period. You're asking the question. Push forward. I'll say it also this way. Fail forward, fail fast, fail frequently. If you are not creating failure events right now, today, every day, then you're not even coming close to your potential. You're not even there. Push yourself to your limits. Rise to the here's another. I'm gonna say it differently. And someone get ready to type this in the chat. I'm asking you to rise to the level of your incompetence. Let me say this differently. If you get to the point to where everything that you can do is done, you start to edge up against the things you just don't know how to do. And you're like, I need help. So I'm asking you to rise to the level of your incompetence. I got that from a very wise gentleman yesterday. I'm like, that's a great way of saying that. Because that's exactly what's necessary. So keep pushing until you're like, I don't know how to do that, but my business still needs it done. Okay. Hello again. Hi. Love this. Me too. So good. Love it. Is there still an option of speaking with you or one of your team members about the roadmap? Why, Neil? Yes, there is. By all means, it sounds like Neil's been around for a little bit longer. This is good, and I like it. So what you would want to do is you want to reach out to Robert and or Jeremy. I believe they are in the chat right now, so that you could make that happen for yourselves, and they'll be able to get an appointment for you and kind of go from there. So let's see. It's called the Peter principle, like Peter from the Bible. Yeah, I can see why it might be called the Peter principle if that's the Peter we're talking about, because Lord knows he opened his mouth often like that. And what is this? Rise to the level of your confident wise words. Yes, that's what it is. That's whether I knew it or not, or know it or not, it's something that I've been doing. I also learned, though, that when I'm up against my incompetence, somebody else is competent at that thing. I just don't know who it is yet. Oftentimes you don't even know what's plaguing you as an entrepreneur. You can barely describe the problem. You just know it's in front of you. And making sure that you have a network of individuals who understand your business, what you do, how you do what you do, why you do what you do, and that you can talk to and just tell them, hey, here's what's going on. I have no idea what it's called, but I would like it to stop. Sometimes they can just name it, and that is relief enough. And then ultimately they can also help you get it solved. So and that's just the world that we play in, right? Because the problems, the solutions, they're all bigger than us, which is great. It just means you have to be willing to get additional help. All right. So as we're winding down here, guys, we are later in the month, much later in the month right now, we're going to be doing a very specific short-term rental only focused training. If you want to find out more information about that, when it starts, put yourself on the list and make sure that you're there. You want to go to CashFlowDiary.com/learn live. CashFlowDiary.com/learn live. And as I said before and say again, we will be back tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Every day in the month of August, we will be live. So if you want to make sure that you catch us, feel free to hit that subscribe, hit that like, because we will be here doing our best to make sure that you just understand yet one more thing so that you can become a little bit better than you were today at the thing you do. All right. As I said before, I say again, ladies and gentlemen, it is always my pleasure. It is literally fun for me to talk to you like this. And I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.